Welcome to the Strategic Marketer Podcast, where we talk about strategies, tactics, and practical steps to help you become a more strategic marketer. I'm your host, Joseph Lewin, and today's conversation is with Jeff Long. He does media marketing for manufacturing companies. In today's conversation, we focus specifically on video marketing that drives results for your business and Jeff's unique approach of video value bombs, a process and a framework for upping your video on a consistent basis and using that content to drive other content marketing strategies in your company. So without further ado, let's dive into the conversation. Jeff, how can companies in technical industries use video to grow their business?
Yeah, so a couple ways they can use video to help their business. I look at it as more of a how to help the customer, right? Because a lot of companies, and I've worked with some large Fortune 500 companies, the biggest privately held company, but also the small to medium-sized companies, and most of them struggle with they only want to talk about themselves, not in a bragging way always, but like they only really know how to talk about it from their perspective rather than from their customer's perspective. So, some ways to use video is teach, train, educate your ideal customer, and that will show your expertise. It will demonstrate your products and services. It will kind of do all the things you're wanting to do, but in a customer-centric way.
Yeah, and that's a little bit less focused on features and benefits and product and more on bringing value, showing the solution. And then when that customer needs your solution, you're going to come top of mind to them. Yeah.
I saw a stat recently, and I'm not going to quote it because I don't remember the exact number, but it was let's say 80% or whatever. It was saying a high percentage of customers will do their research online before they ever talk to a salesperson, right? So they already come armed with information, with options, with choices, they're further along in that sales process than they were 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
So video can help build trust, showcase expertise, and kind of like you said, once they actually talk to somebody, they're more informed because they've been watching that content.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think trust is very valuable. It's kind of hard to quantify the value of trust, especially in the B2B space, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately because I operate occasionally as a B2B buyer, especially of marketing software. And so I've had people reach out to me, do cold outreach. I've gone through sales processes. And then I've also had companies that have used video or used different digital marketing to build trust with me up front. And the salespeople that reach out, I'm always skeptical of them right up front. But when I've already watched 3 or 4 videos or I've been educated by a company in some way ahead of time, then when I have a need for their product, they're the first one that I'm thinking of. And then I'm going in and I'm starting with trust at that point. And if a salesperson, and I actually had this happen recently, where I had a salesperson reach out to me from a company that I'd already seen a lot of videos from and a lot of content from, and I opened their email specifically because they were from a brand that I trusted and because they'd already built that rapport ahead of time. And I got on a call with him, and that conversation wasn't starting from that point of adversary, but more from being on the same side of the table looking at the problem. So
right. Yeah, I just recently was working with somebody. They were trying to sell their house in a different state. I wasn't even familiar with this area. So I reached out to some realtors, and one of the people that got back to me pretty quickly kind of put me in his funnel, which, sometimes I can feel slimy, but this actually was super helpful. So he sent me a podcast interview, just like what we're doing. He said, hey, check out this interview. You might have some of your questions answered. And then over the course of, a week or two, he sent me more helpful information. He was never selling me anything. It was all, hey, here's the top 10 questions I frequently get asked, or here's, what to do when you want to move, or, all these things. I felt more informed. I was able to see his expertise and feel that trust level. And it was like a no-brainer to work with him, right? And so,
Absolutely.
That's kind of what I help, these industrial manufacturing companies do. But to the listener, I mean, that's key. It's like an automated way to duplicate yourself or your sales team
Mm.
is by doing some of these videos, video content, especially.
Yeah, just to validate what you're saying there for our audience, the marketing that I've seen be most successful at our company and at Cadena Smart Solutions, who I work for, we sell one of our products is an engineering software, and it has had an 18 to 24 months average sales cycle. So, decently long, and it's an enterprise sale. It can be pretty complex, but we've actually started seeing some customers close in under 90 days. And we just had a customer close in under 30 days. And part of it's been from giving as much information up front and including video in part of that. And so we're just trying to get them build trust through certain articles that are out there that are answering specific questions that they have. And then that kind of leads them into ultimately looking at a demo of our product that's online and available. And it's more of an educational, takes an educational approach, but shows our software solving the specific problem. And it's been a game changer for how much trust we build before they ever get on a demo with our sales team. And without that video and the different videos in that process, there's no way that we would be seeing that sales cycle shorten like that.
Yeah, definitely.
What are video value bombs? I know that's a product that you offer, and I'm curious to learn more about that.
So, it's interesting. When I started the company in 2003, we did a lot of like about us videos. Again, we've been talking this whole episode about kind of inward facing content. That's kind of the easy default. Most companies, they talk about themselves, their history. We have great products, great people, great services. And usually that's 100% true, right? But the customer doesn't always care as much about that as what the company does. So it kind of got me thinking, okay, if most companies are doing inward focused videos, what content could we create that's more customer centric? Well, okay, so I got my brain rolling, and then it was like, okay, a lot of companies struggle with what content do we create? They might have a couple ideas, but after like 1, 2, or 3, about us, company history, and something different, they're kind of out of ideas. So
Right.
I came up with this roadmap of ideas of content that we follow each month. So this video value bombs strategy, it's a 3-step process. And the tagline is, give us 30 minutes and we'll give you a month's worth of sales and marketing material. So every month we interview a subject matter expert. That could be a salesperson, it could be an executive, it could be, anybody. It could be even a customer, to get a testimonial. And we actually do it through software like this, Teams, Zoom, etc. Partly because of COVID, partly because then we can interview anybody. So we interview a subject matter expert. We ask specific questions and have them talk about specific topics. And then from that discussion, that video interview, we chop that up into video value bombs. So that's kind of the first step. Then step 2 and 3 is we kind of multiply that content, right? So once we have the videos, we can write articles. There's graphics and text graphics we can create and different things. And then we help with distribution. So we have 40 different places we can, post the videos and content every single month. So it becomes this content snowball that gets bigger over time, So, when they start, it helps them build this content library that they can put on their website, on social media, and a plethora of other places online.
Yeah, I've seen that recently too, as I've been working on it, because I focus a lot on writing content, and I've created a lot of video content in the past, in like product videos and whatnot. But then in my current role, it ends up being a lot of researching and talking to subject matter experts and then writing in-depth articles. But then what I've realized recently is, kind of similar to what you're talking about. Well, why not create content with the subject matter experts and kind of use their knowledge and potentially their network as well. If we make them look really good, then they want to share about the content as well. And then we create that content together, and they buy in more, the content's deeper and more valuable. And it's a lot easier to write an article if I had a 40 minute interview with somebody ahead of time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
I'm
love
glad
that.
you're
That
doing
is
that. I
really
think
powerful.
that I love that. And I think that's it's like you're already doing the work to do the interview and set that up. Like, why not add a different or another, mode on top of that, which is video. And so yeah, that's fantastic. We're working with a content writing company and kind of the same thing. We're kind of the video arm. They do the subject matter expert interviews and writing the articles and all that good stuff, and then we kind of take the video. So lots of cool opportunities there.
Yeah, and you're able to just extend the
Right.
amount of content you're able to create. It kind of
Yeah.
you could have a team of 3 or 4 people and be creating exponentially more content and by kind of following that methodology than if you're just going out and trying to write an article on your own. I've found that if I'm
Right.
going to go write, because I'm marketing either to industrial marketers or
Mm.
engineers in my job, and so it typically takes a lot of research to write an article that's
Yeah.
halfway decent. It is going to rank well for keywords that we need to rank for. And
Right.
sometimes it takes like 20, 30, 40 hours of research to write a good, decent article. I mean, they're usually fairly long, 3,500 to 7,000 word articles. So they're not short, but it's a
Mm.
significant amount of lift to do that. But then, again, like I just interviewed somebody a couple weeks ago about digital twins, and they're an expert
Mm.
in digital twin technology.
Nice.
And we sat down, recorded an episode for an hour, or I mean, that technically wasn't an episode, but we did an interview for an hour, and then that's going to turn into a probably 2,000 word article, and then we have the video to go above that for
Nice.
extra SEO value because
Mm.
Google loves a good video, and that increases our on page time, which also increases our page rank in Google's eyes and everything like that. And then to your point, you can then take that same video and potentially cut clips out of it and use those for social or use those for different publishing channels. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's brilliant. This week's episode of The Strategic Marketer is brought to you by the Brand Compass course. If you're looking to take your marketing services side hustle to the next level, the Brand Compass course is for you. In the course, you're going to learn how to identify your ideal customers and narrow down to serve a niche market. Then you're going to learn how to productize your offering so that it's easier for customers to understand exactly what you do for them. And then you're going to put all of this information into a one-page messaging guide. That way you can use your customer's language to speak exactly to their pain points and problems every single time. Check out the show notes for a link to the course.
Yeah, I think, and in the benefit too, like again, back to thinking, some companies, pay us a lot of money to make one video, right? Because the amount of work, the interviews, the travel, all that. But this kind
Absolutely.
of simplifies things. So they kind of get more ROI from a long-term perspective, but they get more content. So to me, it's not an either or. I think there's value to both of those, but to me, they get more video and content and just ROI overall by doing this every month. I mean,
Yeah, I
the
mean, and the
power of content.
consistency of it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and the consistency that you can get doing video
Yeah.
value bombs like you're talking about makes it so that you're going to get more reach on the videos that you've put a lot more time, effort, and money into. Like you're saying, maybe you have a minute and 30-second video or a 5-minute video inside of a manufacturing facility where you're showing it, and it really is cool. I mean, it is cool to see that. But if you do a video like that once a year and you just publish that on, whatever, LinkedIn and YouTube and whatnot, and that's all you do, I mean, your chances of that getting a lot of reach is pretty small unless you have
Right.
a huge email list or something like that. Whereas if you're creating content every single month and you're putting that out there, then when you create that one video, you've already built that audience over time that's paying attention, and you're going to get way more reach and traction on that super polished video that you've done.
Right. Well, you mentioned the term digital twin. I have a friend or a colleague who he does marketing for manufacturers, and he kind of has taken that digital twin aspect and said, "Hey, you're already doing that, digital twin uh, in your market or in your manufacturing company, but think about that from a marketing perspective." So, to the listener, even if you're not in manufacturing, you're kind of cloning yourself or your salespeople, your whoever, when you're doing this content marketing, whether it's articles or videos or podcasts, or I mean, it's fantastic because you're automating yourself, you're duplicating yourself. It's a 24/7, sales, marketing, education, trust building initiative. I'm surprised more companies aren't throwing a lot of effort, energy, et cetera, into content marketing, because I just feel like it's a no-brainer. But many companies are kind of overwhelmed. They either don't have the time, the resources, they don't know who can do it, either internally or externally. So there's some roadblocks. I get it, but I think everybody should have a content marketing strategy, even if they do it all internally.
Yeah, and from the perspective of B2B companies, I feel like a lot of B2B companies are very sales heavy. But the thing is,
Right.
all of this content that's going to be out there, and you're referencing Greg Michio, and he's actually
Yeah.
just been on the show. I think his episode will be
Nice.
like 2 or 3 before this one. So everybody check that
Fantastic.
episode out. You'll
He's a
love
good
it.
guy.
It's
Great
great. But as Greg talks about, you have these different levels of your funnel, and then he ties those to I'm trying to remember exactly how he said it, but it's know, like, and trust. So then
Yeah.
the knowing part tied to the top of the funnel, you have to build content that people can actually find you, and then you have to build content that people are going to like you from, which is more education, and then the trust is going to be more of that bottom of the funnel, social proof, and stuff like that. And I really liked how he said that. I'd never heard anybody kind of tie the funnel to know, like, and trust, and that was pretty neat. And by doing what you're talking about, you can build those different pieces of content for different parts of the funnel. So, your top of the funnel content is going to be more broad educational, and then middle of the funnel, you could be talking to subject matter experts that are in your exact space. And then bottom of the funnel, that could be interviewing customers who are going to talk about how your product how they used your product in their workflow, and how it, made everything better and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And you can even take, another strategy, and that's kind of the format we follow. We have slightly different terms, but it doesn't really matter. Another strategy or tip is, like, look at your top producing blog posts. We call them the unicorns. So what are those top 10% articles? Create more content on that, whether it's additional videos or additional articles. Ask your salespeople, hey, when you go to a call, like, what's that process you take? And see if you could create short videos for some of those steps.
Yeah.
Again, you're automating, you're duplicating and things like that. That way the salesperson can be more effective and efficient when they're making those calls, because it could be a send ahead or a leave behind or whatever in the sales process. And so they're spending less time because the technology, the videos are doing it for them.
Yeah. And so it's not necessarily content marketing or sales. It's that your content marketing can really build trust up front, and also build trust after the call is done. And in between meetings, you can be building that trust, so that every meeting with the salesperson, they're leaving the customer with something, or the prospect with something that builds extra trust, builds extra credibility outside of just like, our product is awesome, but actually like, here's how you can do your job better. We've gone through, we've made this checklist, or we've made this, whatever it would be. And here's a video walkthrough, or we have our subject matter expert on this particular topic that you mentioned, and I thought you'd enjoy this video. And that's a much nicer follow-up to receive than, hey, just wanted to pop this email back to the top of your inbox, or just checking in to see if you've gotten any further on thinking about buying our solution. If instead you're able to leave something that is really timely, and that fits in with where that prospect is in their research, or whatever phase they're in the buying process, it really helps move the needle quite a bit. So one question I have for you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, it makes me think. I was in a company couple recently, and I was talking with their top 2 salespeople. I think one of them was in the room, one of them was on a call, and I said, "Hey, just tell me about your sales process. Like, what do you do?" And their top person said, hey, so I find my ideal customer or the next customer on LinkedIn, and I send him a message and I say, hey, this is Bob, whatever. And then I send him my brochure, and I just kind of pause and I'm like, and then what? He's like, well, and that's it. I mean, that's what we do. That's our sales process or our strategy. And I'm kind of like, well, I mean, is it effective? And he's like, well, I mean, not really, but what are you going to do? And so it's like, well, what if you create some videos, post them to LinkedIn, and then you can grab that URL. And when you're doing a LinkedIn message or connection request, you can put that URL in there and say, hey, this is, Jeff from True Focus Media. I give short video marketing tips like this one below. Check it out. Let's connect. And it's not sales pitchy or anything, the ones I do. But anyway, it was just, I think some salespeople they need some other ideas, and so we've talked a lot about those here today.
Yeah, you need some more tools in your belt than just like pitch, and hope
Yeah.
that one of those lands at the right time with the right person at the right time. Instead, taking a longer term approach and going, okay, 97% plus of the people I'm going to reach out to are not in a place where they're going to be ready to buy in the next 30 days. So let's just scrap trying to get everybody who's in that window or alienating everybody that's not in the buying window now so that we could meet quota for next month. Instead saying, how can I add value to people? How could every interaction that I have with a prospect make them happy that I reached out to them? And educating and providing some of that content and working with somebody like you guys to create that video content for your sales team to send, because it could be them that are creating that content on LinkedIn, and they should be. But even if they're not going to do that, having these pieces of content that are valuable on that subject matter really goes a long way. So, for me personally, I work on a small marketing team, and I know a lot of the people that listen in are also, on the more smaller side of marketing teams or more lean marketing. So should small teams create video in-house? And at what point is it worth it to focus on in-house versus bringing in somebody that already has expertise?
Yeah, it's a good question. So a couple thoughts. A quote that I have kind of latched onto, I heard it probably a decade or more ago, and I don't have his even name in front of me. The quote is, marketing is everything and everything is marketing, right? So that can be a double-edged sword, right? That, from our business cards to our website to our whatever, it's all marketing. So all that to say, the beauty of technology, whether it's with our phone or like what we're, recording on here today, I mean, it's not complicated to pick up your phone, record a video, and do a quick edit and publish. Like, it's doable. So should a company do it internally? If they can and want to, and if it's, some people like that type of stuff, I'd say go for it. If that's not a strength, if there's people that are just overwhelmed, they don't know how to do it or have a strategy or plan in place, I mean, obviously that's why my company exists, right? To serve other companies. So, I can't tell, who's all listening here, but as much as you can, try to do it internally. And you might learn, oh, wow, this actually does take a lot of work, a lot of knowledge. It's harder than I thought,
Absolutely.
Because sometimes that can be the case. It seems simple, like, oh, Jeff, just make a short little video. And I mean, yeah, we can, but like to think through the process and the strategy and talk to the subject matter experts and to do all that and then edit it and then perfect it and
have
tweak
the right
it.
questions so it actually follows
some
kind of
it's
linear thought process and everything.
Right. So yeah, I think everybody should do as much as they can internally. If they don't have the time, bandwidth, knowledge, whatever, then definitely look for an expert that's already doing what they're looking to do. I think that's the key. There's a really good book that I read twice called Who, Not How. And, it's easy for small companies to think, how can we do this internally versus who's already doing what we're trying to accomplish? Who's that expert who can get us there further, faster, and more effectively, and reach out to that person or company.
Strategic Marketer is brought to you in part by Thrive Themes. Thrive Themes is a killer visual WordPress editor. They've also recently launched editable themes so that you can edit every element of your WordPress theme. You can create amazing landing pages that are beautiful and conversion focused. They've built all of their products around helping you convert more leads into customers. You can find out more about Thrive Themes by clicking the link in the show notes. That's a lot. There's a lot of wisdom in that. And I would say, just kind of to build on what you're talking about there, if you're not going to start making video and publishing it this month, you should talk to somebody externally and start finding out what it would take, because the value that we've seen in our company by creating video content and having it on our site, especially if you're already creating content that you're trying to rank for and you're not using video in that process, you've got to figure out how to get video in there, because it really personalizes. I mean, the companies that I've seen that are using video, you're just already comfortable with those people ahead of time. You kind of have a feeling, and it's easy for people to pay a copywriter a lot of money to write copy for their website, but you really get a different feel and point of view when you see, especially people from inside the company talking and, getting an idea from that. So
that's a really good point. And I think, you mentioned website, right? We've all seen like terrible stock photos and, stuff. It's like, who are these people? Are they even real? Right. I think smartphones and YouTube has lowered the barrier or the expectation of quality. So it used to be, your videos had to be like 100% perfect or they were unacceptable. And I think there's a time and a place for like a perfect video, a company profile or whatever. That's fine. But authenticity and showing the people that are at your company, I think, is becoming more and more a factor, right? It's like, we don't have to be perfect. We want to show you, we want to showcase our expertise, whether that's the people or products or services. So, don't be afraid to start a podcast or make videos or do something that shows personality. And that's hard for me too. I mean, I'm a perfectionist, I hate how I look and sound on video, just like everybody else, so you kind of have to work through that. But, if we're trying to help and serve other people, the least I can do is share my expertise with other people through like this podcast or videos or whatever. So it's as long as, for me personally, a little tip here, as long as I'm teaching or helping, I'm comfortable, I'm normal. If I feel like I have to memorize lines and be perfect, then I get all, I don't know. It's more difficult to deliver.
Absolutely. It's like the local college ads that you see on TV. Every time that I see a local college ad, I'm like, those guys are not seasoned professional actors. They're more like people like me who are trying to memorize lines, and you can tell. So if you're trying to create a scripted video, that, like you're saying, that can be much more challenging. But when you're having conversation, that's been a big game changer for me with creating video, because I have created scripted videos, and it is very challenging to do. And I've done voiceovers for videos, and it is really challenging. And, I don't have the best voice. I'm not doing it because I'm the best voice actor, but more just because we like publishing stuff and getting it out there.
Right. Yeah.
So going against the idea of it having to be perfect, I was the one that was doing the voiceover, but that it is really hard to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas having a conversation is something that's normal. And I mean, if you ever talk to people, you can get on and have a conversation like we're having. And this is valuable content for LinkedIn, or, to put on your YouTube channel, or to have as a video at the top of a blog post for your website. All of those are it's easy to just get on and have a conversation. And if you take a little bit of time up front and have a good structure to the questions that you're asking, it makes it so that the conversation feels natural and normal, but it has a beginning, middle, and end. And I think that really goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
So speaking of beginning, middle, and end, and having a question that we can kind of polish this thing off on, I always like ending the podcast with giving people practical steps that they can take away from the conversation. So if a company doesn't have the resources to outsource video, what are a few practical steps they can take to start using video in their marketing mix, starting tomorrow?
Yeah, perfect. And I actually have some videos I'm about to release, like on my LinkedIn page, website, etc. So probably by the time this podcast is out, it'll be like on truefocusmedia.com or whatever. But so the 3 tips are audio, lighting, and video. So audio, I mean, it's really important to have either a microphone. So we both have, pretty nice microphones here, or have the mic close to your person that you're filming, right? So if you're using your phone, just make sure you could have a, wired headset, or there's other options out there. Make sure your audio is good, because if we can't hear you, there's something in us that it's not that we don't trust the person or we don't want to connect, but it's just harder. It's like a barrier to entry.
Absolutely.
So that audio piece is key. Whether, whenever we're doing a big, huge production, and we do a lot of those, or a simple content marketing video, like audio is still critical to what we're trying to do. So that's kind of tip number 1. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the audio piece before I go on.
Yeah, I mean, I would just concur with you. I've been kind of surprised, and as I've gone through, but I would almost say that audio is more important than lighting and video. Like if your video quality is poor and your lighting is poor, but the audio is crisp and you can really hear it. I think the challenge is if you have to strain to hear the audio because there's like muffling or, things like that. It makes it so you have to try so hard just to hear what they're saying that it makes it harder to really absorb fully the content, the message of the content. The only other thing I'd say is I think there's a tendency when you do use headphones to use wired headphones. And if you have long hair or you're wearing earrings, that can really be a big pitfall. So if you have long hair or earrings, make sure that your hair or earrings aren't touching that microphone, because I've been on a lot of calls or interviews where somebody has their hair constantly rubbing against the microphone, and that is very distracting.
Right. Yeah. I could tell some stories there, but I won't. So number 2 is lighting, and whether somebody's doing like a content marketing piece or an interview like this, right? Like we're both in our office. Good lighting is key, and so I've talked with a lot of people who maybe they're home office because of COVID, or just now that's what they're doing. Again, I think this marketing is everything and everything is marketing, right? So try to get good lighting wherever you are, your desk, your office, home office, at work office. Even if you're just doing like Teams or Zoom calls with employees or customers, it still makes you look better, which makes you look more like what you're talking about, which builds that know, like, and trust factor. So I mean, you can go to Costco or Amazon and just buy simple little desk lamps, LED lights. It doesn't have to be complex. I mean, I have some crazy lighting setups, but most normal people don't need that complexity. So lighting is number 2, and it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And it doesn't have to be super expensive, like you're saying. I would say the one other caveat is the, what are those called again? The like
ring lights,
long light bulbs. Why am I not thinking of what those are called here?
Fluorescent or
fluorescent bulbs.
I know what
at an office building. Those are the worst.
Right. Yeah.
So you're better off turning those off and having some kind of other light source, whether it's a window or something, because those always mess with the video. Like I had somebody on the other day, and the video had rolling. It causes like those rolling things to go through the video and stuff with that kind of lighting. So just kind of pay attention to that. But
yeah. And then the last thing real quick is like video quality. So that could be, if I think there's an authenticity to holding your phone and doing almost like selfie videos. And I've done those, but try to hold it still, right? Don't be in an earthquake and jiggle all around. And then, the quality of the camera. So, I'm using a 4K webcam right now. Obviously, most smartphones have 4K or 2K or 1080 at a minimum, and getting better every time. So again, just if you're doing some of these videos internally, try to have the quality be something that you're proud of, but also be fine and know that in 6 months or a year, you're probably going to look back and be like, wow, that wasn't that good. And that's okay. We're all getting better. There's videos I've made and I look back and I'm like, oh man, I've grown. I've gotten better. I think that's a good thing. I think that's commendable. I don't want to look at, and we also, develop websites. I don't want to look at a website we've done 5 years ago and be like, wow, we haven't gotten any better. Like I want to be a little
just
like,
as good as
wow,
everything we're doing now. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's okay if you look back and whatever you created, the podcast, the video, the website, if you've grown, that's a good thing. So don't don't take it offline because it's not 100% perfect. Still let that kind of SEO juice build up and let that value benefit you over time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I this webcam that I have is like a $80
Yeah,
1080p webcam, and I think you could actually probably get something similar for like $50, something like
right.
that.
Yeah,
And would
yeah.
I like to have a better camera? In fact, I was working on setting up my SLR as a
Mm,
webcam for some of these, and
nice.
I might set that up here soon. Um, but you don't have to have that. And so, I mean,
Right.
even if you spent $200 to get a mic, a webcam, and a light, it's gonna upgrade the quality of what you're doing by a
Right.
hundred. And
Yeah.
is it necessarily the best setup you could ever have, where you have like what those street gaming streamers have, where they got their SLR and like three microphones and all this? No. In fact,
Right.
this mic, the only reason I have this is because I used to record music, and it's been sitting around
Nice.
in my closet for like 12 years. And I was like, hey, if I'm going to start podcasting, I'm going to pull my golden mic back out
It
again and
looks
start using
legit. I
it.
mean, the gold. I mean, you look like yeah. I can tell you know what you're doing because the microphone says it all. So
Yeah. But if I wasn't doing like if I didn't have this sitting in my closet, I would have bought an $80 mic and run with it. So I totally agree
yeah,
with you. Just get started. And even beyond that, like if you don't have that, just getting started with something and
yeah,
getting it out there is valuable. And there's value in getting it out there and testing your messaging and kind of
yeah,
getting a feel for it, and then upgrading your equipment as you get out and do it. Because kind of to your point, if you wait until you have the nicest equipment, until your videos are perfect, where I get background noise coming through here, there's some guys pulling up a driveway over here, so that some of that might come through, and it's like you just roll with it, and
yeah.
it ends up bringing more value than if you just create a few perfect pieces of content twice a year.
Right. That's a good point. That's so good.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jeff, for coming on the podcast. What are a couple ways that people can find out more information about you? And I just want to say too, if you are in the manufacturing space, I highly recommend doing the video value bombs
Mm.
and using that methodology. And we've been doing something similar. I'm sure that we could learn a lot from what you're doing and upgrade even more. But we've seen a lot of value from taking that type of approach. And I would highly recommend that you reach out to Jeff specifically if you're in that space, and have him help you do that. So if people are there, how can they find you?
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Two ways. I mean, LinkedIn, you can just search Jeff Long and connect with me there. That's kind of where I'm most active. And then our website, truefocusmedia.com. And we have, all of our examples of our videos and websites we've done and all that good stuff. So you can reach out there as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jeff. Really appreciate it, and look forward to having more conversations down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to The Strategic Marketer wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you could do me a personal favor and hit 5 stars on the rating, you don't have to leave a full review, just hit 5 stars. It would really help me out. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Strategic Marketer.